back. James Harden right on target. Bang, bang, George Niang to Paul Reed from Tyrese Maxey. Joel Embiid.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Pick Swap Podcast. It is Monday evening. The city of Philadelphia is absolutely buzzing. What a weekend for the sports here in this city. We followed up with a Tuesday night home or away opener, season opener against the Boston Celtics with the Philadelphia 76ers getting in action tomorrow. It's me and Sean Bernard as usual. Sean, how you doing, brother?
Yeah, I don't know if I could be much better, man. I'm coming off. I had a chance to be at the Eagles game last night, so I got to see that in person. Just what a weekend. Phillies are rolling. Sixers are starting. We're getting the NBA opener even. So, yeah, I'm thrilled. Things are great.
Yeah, absolutely, man. You were there on Sunday night last night. I was at the Phils game on Friday. So we got the chance to both attend some pretty awesome events this weekend in the city. Obviously, a lot more to come with the Sixers starting up soon. 2 Flyers wins as well, undefeated. Want to throw that in there. I always got to represent my guys. But let's talk about this season. Obviously, tomorrow, the opener in Boston, defending Eastern Conference champions. We're not going to talk too much about that. We're going to recap that in the next episode. We're going to talk about a lot of the other stuff going into the season, or predictions, different overviews for the players coming up in this season. So, Sean, if you kind of want to give ourselves the preview to this episode right now.
Yeah, definitely. So I figured before the season fully kicks off and we got some real basketball to talk about, we'll run through, give some expectations, go through. We got a couple Sixers guys, a couple NBA takes, and just going to give our predictions, expectations as far as points per game and how things are going to shake out. So if you want to get into it and go one by one, we can start off with Joel Embiid. Yeah, I based these numbers. I went through DraftKings just because it was the easiest to find them there, but they're over-under set here. So Joel Embiid is starting out with that 30.1 points per game. Last year, he averaged 30.6 points per game, which, of course, led the league. First center to do that since Shaq. The year before, he averaged 28.5. What do you think, James? Joel Embiid over or under 30.1 points per game this season?
So I went back and forth on this. I think my final answer is under. But here's what I'm thinking, why it took me a little bit to decide on this is just the fact that James Harden has opened and so much up for him. We saw even a small percentage increase in Embiid's points per game after the arrival of Harden last season. He's just going to make life so much easier on Joel Embiid with the way that they've built this pick and roll chemistry. I know we saw that little soundbite of him and Doc Rivers, of James Harden and Doc Rivers, talking about if I can just get him 8 points, like 8 easy points, it opens up everything up. And I think that's a lot of what they're going to focus on this year is getting him some more easy baskets. I just think volume-wise, the ball gets around a little bit more, keeping him under that 30-point per game number.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. And I also kind of flip-flopped on this. I think my final kind of decision on it is I think he's going to end in the upper 20s, which is still like a phenomenal production from any NBA player. But I think last year he really kind of chased that scoring title, really put some effort into getting it down the stretch. And the Harden factor did kind of swing me a little bit because I do think he's going to get easier buckets this year. But I think there's just more guys that can fill it up this year.
Right.
Things are going to be spread out a little more. It's not going to be as much as the Joel Embiid show this year, which in the long run, and we're talking about keeping him healthy and everything else that comes with this team, that's a good thing. So my answer is under for the Embiid over under.
Yeah, I think we're right on the same page there. It's going to be an interesting, thinking about the way that he operates and how many years we've watched him just have to work his ass off for so many buckets. This is a theme, a motif, one may even say, over the years of Joel Embiid, us talking about the fact that he could just get 6, 8, 10 points on easy buckets. It's very rare. The guy doesn't catch many lobs. It's just the way this team has been built around him has made it more difficult for him to get shots. Whereas this year coming into the season, I think it's going to be easier for him in certain areas. So I think, I wouldn't be surprised. I think that's the best way to put it. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets over that 30 point per game.
Yeah, absolutely. And even the pick and roll is pretty new to him. They haven't done that for a while either. But to jump into that a little bit, his pick and roll partner, James Harden, for the over-under, we have it 21.9 points per game this year. So looking at Harden in the past, he has a career average of 24.9 points per game. He averaged 21.0 points per game with the Sixers last year, 22.0 on the year, when including his time with the Nets. So what do you think about James Harden, over or under 21.9 points per game?
So I'm going to go over I think when we're talking about the ball going around, when we're talking about quote unquote, James Harden is one of those guys, right? Like he's going to be one of the guys that's going to command that attention with the pick and roll with Embiid. There's, just as much as it is easy buckets for Joel, we've seen the opposite of that as well. A lot of walk in, like the one I know that you were salivating over this one, the walk in mid range at the free throw line. It was right on cue for what you had talked about all season last year. Seeing him take that step, seeing other guys that can pass the ball and facilitate a little bit more, him being able to maybe operate off a catch and shoot a little bit more comfortably, a lot of that translates to him scoring a little bit more. So getting around that 22, 23 point per game, I think is going to be, it's going to happen. And I think it's going to be huge for the offensive production of this team.
Yeah, I also got over. I think there is going to be a bounce back Harden here. Not necessarily to the extent of his averaging 36 a game like he did in Houston, but I think in the mid 20s is something that's going to be comfortable. I think he's going to be in that like 24 point per game range, which is a nice little bump and something that'll be helpful. And I think it's going to be cool to watch it be distributed between Embiid, Maxey, and Harden. We're going to get into Maxey next year, but I think those three are going to combine and take the shine. And I just think Harden's going to be a little better. And I think there's a little bit too much made out of how washed he is, considering he's still a guy that averaged 21, 10 and a half, and 7 last year. So I'm excited to see the version of James Harden. And like we've talked about a bunch, that's kind of the X factor for this season.
Yeah. And I think, like you mentioned there, washed James Harden still was giving you 22 and 10. So if, a lot of it's talked about his health, the way his mental space where he is mentally and physically, I think have improved drastically since, arriving here. So I think coming into next year with that mindset, better physical shape, just looking like the best shape he's been in a handful of years. I think that just easily translates. Like he can score at will at times. It's James Harden, man. We're talking about, can he get over 21, 22 points per game? That's crazy to think about. I think it's going to be kind of easy money for him this year.
Yeah, definitely. And the third guy in the newly developed Sixers big three is Tyrese Maxey. And the over-under for him on the year is set at 18.8 points per game. I'm pretty sure we're going to be on the same page here, but what are your thoughts on that?
Over, man. This kid is he's got it. Year 3, improved everywhere. It seems like it just really I don't see many flaws in what he's done. And all the flaws that he did have or seemingly had before, he's done incredible work to improve in those areas. So I think 20 points per game is what he's shooting for, 21, 22. In those range, it'd be incredible to have 3 guys in that area. And I think the Sixers have a really good chance of doing that this year.
Yeah, I was a little surprised how low this number was. If I had to set it in my head, I would probably put it at like 20.5 or 19.5, somewhere around there is kind of where I see him hovering. I think he's a chance to outscore Harden this year, and I think it's pretty likely that he does. He made the jump from 8 points per game as a rookie to 17.5 points per game last year, and he's only gotten better. We saw his point production increase alongside Harden, saw his 3-point production increase alongside Harden. I think a full year of that is going to be awesome. And something I was digging through the stats through the other day I thought was very cool. As far as Maxey specifically, him and Harden had the best 2-man rating out of any Sixers duo, which I thought was very cool as far as like guards with that. So I think it's cool, more time with that, and I think he outscores that pretty comfortably.
I hope so, man. That would be huge for them in their production. Wanted to talk about it before we move past Maxey here is the quote from Harden today talking about how Maxey got pissed, like super mad about a call or a non-call in the preseason, and Harden saying like, we want more of that. I want to see Tyrese pissed off more often and attacking in a different state of mind. So I think that's an important thing. Obviously, we all love Maxey's attitude and the way that he goes about playing the game of basketball. But there is something to be said about the playing the game angry or with a chip on your shoulder. I think he does that in his own way, but to kind of show the emotion that he showed before, I think, and also having Harden note that it was important and good and a good thing and that he wants to see more of it. Like I really liked that, and I think it shows another like how Maxey's going to grow this year and also how Harden is as a leader. I think that was like a really like niche and small thing that happened that I thought was like really good.
Yeah, that's awesome to see, and it is rare that we kind of see that kind of expression.
Yeah.
From. So I remember that moment for sure, and cool it's being
Mhm.
acknowledged, I guess.
Yeah.
To move on to the next, we have the Sixers season-long wins over under at 50.5 wins. Now, looking back at last year, they had 51 wins on the year. The year before, 49. The year before, 43, but that was the COVID year, so they only played 73 games. 51 in 18-19 and 52 in 17-18, which is their highest total in the Joel Embiid era. So moving forward, looking at this year specifically, you think over or under 50.5 wins for the Sixers?
So again, I think that's this is just Vegas doing their work, right? I think it's going to be really close to that number for two reasons. Obviously, I think they're going to be more careful about the guys on this team, like Embiid and Harden there's going to be intentional games off. There's going to be intentional times off. All these guys are going to get rest throughout the season. But on the flip side of that, this is the deepest team that they've had in a long time. So the bench can also take some time and put in a lot of good effort that could help them win a lot of those games that Embiid and or Harden miss. So I think I want to go over here, but I think it's very slightly. I would say 51 or 52. I think they're in that range. They're a very good team, and I think regular season will help translate, obviously, with all these guys that are coming in. But the playoffs, again, are the most important. But I think it would be good for them to hit that 51 win benchmark.
Yeah, I think they're going to be right at it. I'll disagree with you here and go under, but I agree.
Nice.
I think it's going to be close. I'm kind of for the same logic as you, but I think looking at how this team's constructed, I think they're constructed as a postseason team, which is how they should. But I don't think this is one that's going to be like we've seen the Utah Jazzes and the Houston Rockets old ages that are built for regular season success, that kind of thing. That's not how I feel about the Sixers team. I think they're a hard-nosed playoff team. They just want to take it to the dance and figure it out from there, which is absolutely the right mindset and something I'm happy to be saying. So I'm going to lean a little under on the wins. I think that there's going to be some growing pains more than I think we're expecting, but they'll find their way in, still be a comfortable seed going into the playoffs, and I feel good about them once they get in.
Yeah, me too. And I think, again, looking at that number around 50, it's a fair number. 50 is that benchmark. A lot of teams that are looking to make runs in the playoffs will try to reach that mark. We've seen them, certain teams, the Sixers specifically, go for certain benchmarks during the season, go for certain titles in the regular season, whether it's the 1 seed or what have you. So I think it's important to obviously try to win that amount of games, but I think it's also more important to have the long view, and I think that is where the Sixers are headed.
Yeah, totally agree. And we kind of referenced the bench production and the added depth there. So looking at the bench and the guys that we've added, the players that are there, what player do you think will average the most points per game out of the bench unit this year?
So my answer is going to be a little bit different than who I think the MVP of the bench will be.
Sure.
I think points per game wise, I think it's going to be Montrez. I think just because that's his role, right? We talked about that when they acquired him, he is a bench scorer. He's a guy that's going to come in. He's going to get he's going to work his ass off for it. And again, we've really grown fond of him over the short time that he's been here. We haven't even seen him play a regular season game, but we've kind of bought in to the Montrezl Harrell experience. And I'm really looking forward to see him in a full season and what he can do. And again, when we talk about Embiid missing games and other guys missing games, Montrez is going to be a guy that steps up a lot. And I'm very okay with that. So I think Montrez with his role and what he brings to the table and what else is on the bench, when you talk about the defensive minded and other minded guys on the bench, I think it's Montrez's title to take there.
Yeah, I agree with you here. I have Montrez as well. And looking at his stats, career average of 12.9 points per game. Last year, he averaged 13.1 points per game while bouncing around between the Hornets and the Wizards. His best year was under Doc Rivers with the Clippers at 18.6 points per game. And when is the last time you can ever think of a Sixers bench player touching 18.6 points per game? So that's incredibly exciting to me. I love his game a lot. I'm very excited. And I do want to get back to kind of what you referenced there, because I'm also on the same page with this. So Montrez, I believe, will be the leading scorer, but who do you think is going to be the quote-unquote MVP of the Sixers bench unit?
Yeah, I think you and I are going to be on the same page as this as well. It seems like we've kind of been there the whole time, but it's going to be DeAnthony Melton to me. I'm assuming that's probably what you're going to say as well, and I'll leave some room there for you too. But shooting wise, defensive wise, his ability to mix with any of the lineups that they have, I think is going to prove to be really valuable throughout this season when you talk about missing time and different things, and then into the playoffs as well. A guy that is there. He can shoot at a high rate. He can handle well. He's a really good athlete, fantastic defender, a guy that's just going to be able to do everything, slot in anywhere. I think any day, any night, DeAnthony Melton is just going to be a sure thing. And I think that's a fantastic thing. Weight off the shoulders of a lot of Sixers fans, me specifically. So I think Melton's going to be the MVP of that bench unit.
Yeah, I for the most part will agree with that too. I also want to share some love for Daniel House, because I think he's going to a very key part of this bench unit. I've been extremely impressed with what he's shown on the court, and just like the sense I'm getting from everybody on the team, like his teammates can't get enough of talking about like how much they like him, how like even following the last preseason game, Daniel House has his own music label. Like they were listening to his songs in the locker room and that kind of thing. And it just seems like a guy that's like clicking with everybody, and just on the court, like he's a fit with the way he can defend, being willing to toss from deep. The thing I will say about DeAnthony Melton that's starting to become a concern for me already is I'm worried they're going to put him on too much of an on-ball role. I think Doc Rivers is going to try and slide him as the ball handler of the second unit, which I don't think is his natural fit. I think he's a guy where it is utilized best, letting him kind of be a 3-and-D floor spacer, use his athleticism, be willing to shoot from deep.
Yeah.
But I think he's trying to kind of bump him above Shake Milton in that type of role. And that's just kind of not how I see him best fit. So I think that's going to be something that's going to play it out with. And that's not necessarily a slight at DeAnthony Melton. That's more of a usage thing for sure. But that's kind of my concern there.
Yeah, I could see that as well. And you saw that a lot throughout the preseason. And a conversation I want to have, we have a few things to discuss post all of these awards and different things that we're talking about right now. But that backup point guard role, the extra roster spot, there's a lot to be said about that, and kind of alluding here, foreshadowing to the end of this episode. But we'll get to that later. So what do we have next here?
Yeah, so we'll jump into, we talked about Montrez here. So the backup center has been like a position of controversy for several years. So specifically talking about it, it looks like it's down to Montrez Harrell, B-Ball Paul, and of course, PJ Tucker will be in the mix as well. But who do you think will play the most minutes out of Montrez Harrell and B-Ball Paul this year?
So like it's really tough because of the fact that I think it's going to be a lot of like matchup based. When you talk about like minutes per game at the end of the year, I think it's going to be Harrell. Again, kind of to the point of like Embiid missing time and certain situations, certain nights where they want to keep Embiid under like a minute restriction or whatever you want to put it as. I think Harrell eats those minutes a little bit more, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's really close. And I think that's a really good thing. You're talking about two different guys that have the ability to step up and play a lot of minutes. In absence of Joel Embiid, it was a long time where we struggled to find one guy to do that. So it's really good. I think it's going to be close, but I'm going to go with Harrell just for the fact that I think in nights where Embiid is not around, Harrell is going to take the larger portion of those minutes.
Yeah, I think Doc's going to lean toward Harrell as well. And I do think I prematurely congratulated our boy B-Ball Paul for earning his role on this preseason, but I don't think he's quite out the mud yet. So I think there's going to be some nights where B-Ball Paul kind of has a backseat, maybe doesn't get off the bench at all, versus there will be nights where he plays a ton, and that's going to be kind of a tough battle. And I've always felt bad for like players kind of in that role, because it's just difficult to kind of have your mindset where there's some nights where he might legitimately play like 30 minutes and some nights where he won't see the floor at all. So B-Ball Paul's handled everything in stride so far, but I do think Harrell, just given the relationship between Doc Rivers and Montrez and everything that he does offensively, I think that's going to be, and in fairness, like Montrez is a regular season kind of player. This is something that if we use him as the innings eater through the regular season and give B-Ball Paul the job, make sure he's developed properly when we get to the playoffs, that's kind of how I see this working out perfectly. We just got to make sure that's kind of the steps we take toward it.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's going to be a lot of that. With Paul, it's a good and bad thing, right? I think he's going to be he had the luxury to work behind Embiid for this long. Obviously, even with Drummond, like rebounding wise, like he's had a chance to learn behind a lot of good bigs. Montrez is another guy that I think will just help him grow in that sense. And like you said, he's taking everything in stride. He has the right mindset about all of this. So while it is maybe a difficult situation to play through, I think he's the right guy to be in that situation. And when it comes time, like I have no doubt that Paul Reed's going to be ready to give his effort when the time comes. So like it doesn't concern me very much that he's in like a difficult situation.
Yeah, he's fought through more already, so I'm excited to see it. And then getting to the season prediction as a whole. So how do you see the Sixers season shaking out this year as far as postseason and how things just ultimately wrap up?
Yeah, man. I'm gonna stay optimistic. Maybe that's my greatest downfall, right? I feel like this is our. I wanted to mention this at the beginning. This is now our fourth season that we're covering. Is that correct?
Crazy. Yeah, that because we
That's
started
insane.
With
halfway through.
Yeah, the COVID year, the bubble year.
Yeah, so we started right before the bubble like started back up. So thinking back to that and like how long this has been going into this fourth season, like I've always had the same expectation. I've been let down 3 years, 3 different seasons. We've kind of been like convinced myself every year going into it. But man, I'm gonna keep it. Like I think this team is a championship contender. I think it's finals or bust. Like honestly, they've put together a really strong team, a really deep team, and this has been like this is year 3 of Doc. It's year 3 of Daryl Morey. It's year 3 of Embiid underneath that reign, and now you have the star power and a young stud that can help you out as well. Like it's time to really put this all together, and I think they've done a really good job of that. So man, I think this is an Eastern Conference champion, and I think they're going to be playing in the finals this year.
Yeah, and I remember in the year that we first started this, you talking both of us into how an Al Horford led team can take us to the
I was delusional, man.
yeah, how they just needed the time off to click and everything about it. But I do feel a little bit better about this roster we have rolling out this year. I don't know if I can fully talk myself in the finals yet. I just need to see a little bit on the court, see how the team looks. I do think we get past the second round plateau that we haven't through the entire Embiid era, how the Sixers haven't through since the 2001 season with Iverson is the last time that they've been past this. I think we lose in the Eastern Conference Finals to the Milwaukee Bucks is my unfortunate prediction, and I hope I'm wrong. I hope I am. I hope that I am. But the Bucks team does scare me a little bit this year. Celtics still do a little bit too. All of the coaching thing, I think, kind of changes that a little bit.
Yeah.
But I do think the Bucks are my still most feared team in the East.
Yeah, man, Giannis is that dude. I know we're gonna talk about MVP and stuff in a minute, but like he's just that good. The East is damn good, right? Like I think it's tough because of the situation that's like playing out. They had years where the East wasn't that strong. They've now become a team that's ridiculously or playing in a ridiculously strong conference, whereas the Western Conference is just like this is good basketball, man. Like this NBA season is gonna be crazy. I think there's gonna be a lot of teams that outplay what their expectations, a lot of teams that underplay their expectations. It really depends. I just think mentality wise, the way that this team has been locked in, they have a really good chance at doing it. Will they break my heart? History says yes. My brain says no. So we'll see. In a few months, we'll see how I'm feeling, but it's my way of life.
Yeah,
I can't help it.
For sure. And to get into the NBA as a whole, so I know Joel Embiid has been second in MVP voting back-to-back seasons now. Do you think this is the year he gets it, or do you have another prediction for MVP?
Yeah, I don't think it's Embiid's year. I don't even think he's focused on that, to be honest. Like I don't even think it's going to be something that he thinks about. My pick for MVP is actually going to be Luka. I think what is this year 5 for him? It's going to be one of those years where like the Mavericks are good, right? They're fine. If they can play well and get play well during the regular season, obviously it's not a playoff award, but like if he shows that he can get them to a higher seed, he's been doing it his entire career so far. I think the numbers are going to match now, and I think the NBA wants Luka Doncic to be an MVP. So I think this year might be his year, and I love Luka, so I wouldn't mind it.
Yeah. I can't believe I agree with you on this too, but I also
we had the same pick on this too.
Yeah, I'll kind of take it through my logic. They're not going to give it to Jokic 3 times in a row.
Right.
Too many already.
Embiid,
Embiid, I think the Sixers are going to be like too good, and there's going to be just too many hands in the pot for him to get his accolades. It really is a bummer because like last year was the year that I think he deserved it, he earned it, and should have got it. And we've been pretty clear on that from the beginning. It's really frustrating and disappointing that wasn't the case. But I think that kind of was his window. Was last year was the year where he was supposed to win it. Also, looking into this, there hasn't been an American that has won MVP since James Harden, which is kind of crazy. It's all
wow.
So, but and then looking at also like Giannis, I could see Giannis having another run at it. I also could see Steph Curry getting another run at it. I think if he starts hot, like the Warriors. LeBron could always do it. I think John Morant's going to be sneaky in the conversation, but I do ultimately think it's going to be Luka just because of the ridiculous usage that he's going to have this year. Just looking at the way that team is constructed, everything runs through him. He is phenomenal. Like he is really that guy. And I think he's going to generally be putting up like Russell Westbrook, OKC, James Harden, Houston Rockets type usage numbers this year.
Yeah, I could see it too. I mean, it's like one of those things. It's going to depend like in 2 months from now when the NBA decides who they want to be the finalists, like we'll see throughout the rest of the year who those guys are. But I totally agree with you. Like obviously not Jokic again. Embiid, I just, like you said, I just don't think it's situational. It's all, what's hot at the moment. I think the NBA is just like that. It's just the way that it is. There's not too much you can do about it. And I think like everybody loves Luka, right? I feel like a lot of people love Luka. The Mavericks are like a neutral team because
Mhm.
like who have they hurt really other than the Heat, and like the Heat were mortal enemies to everybody else. So like the Mavericks are the good guys. Luka's a good dude on the good team. So I think it'll be his year, and I'll be happy about it. I can't lie.
Yeah, no, I'm cool with it as well. And to move on to Defensive Player of the Year, who do you have for this?
So I have Joel Embiid here.
Okay.
This is his award to win, and I'm fiending for this because this would just be like the biggest middle finger to everybody, where it's like you didn't give me the MVP, you've been snubbing me on this shit since the beginning. It's my time to show you what I came in the league as a Defensive Player of the Year candidate.
Yeah.
I just became the best offensive player in the league. I'm going to show you now why I was considered a Defensive Player of the Year candidate from the beginning. I had an argument. I think I mentioned this before with one of my coworkers that said Embiid wasn't a good defender. And at lunch that day, I placed a $10 bet on Embiid to win Defensive Player of the Year. So I'm all in on that. I think just with the team, they're going to be one of the best defensive teams in the league, right? Like I think they've all mentioned that that's important to them. I think that's going to be like their bread and butter and where they really make their money. He's an incredible defender. He's in great shape. And I think with the fact that he doesn't have to work so hard on the offensive end and work for every bucket and be the center of focus every single time on the floor, he can kind of take the load off there, put a little bit more of that effort and focus in on the other end. And when he's locked in on the defensive end of the floor, man, like we talk about this all the time, it's an underrated part of his game. He's incredible on that side of the ball. So I'm actually really excited to see what he does over on that end because he's already an incredible defender. Kind of mix all these other factors in, and I think he comes out as the best in the league.
Yeah, I would love to see it. He's talked about it throughout since he's coming in the NBA that
Yeah.
winning Defensive Player of the Year has been a goal of his. He's reemphasized it this year as well. I think it's a team focus to be defensive oriented. And if he just has like some of that offensive load taken off him, like if there's more possessions per game that like James Harden, Tyrese Maxey are the guy creating, he can focus defensively. I could see that playing out. I hate my pick way more. I'm going to go with Rudy Gobert. I think it's going to be Defensive Player of the Year. Yeah, moving over to Minnesota. I think like the Utah system was so built around him as being the defensive anchor, being that guy. I think they're going to model something similar in Minnesota. And I think next to Cat specifically, like I don't think Cat's that good of a defender. He has his moments and like when he gets fired up, and I know plenty of people will fight that he is a good defender, but I just don't really see it as much as that. And I think Gobert is going to become like a crucial part of the anchor of that team, and I think he's going to be recognized for it.
Yeah, I mean, I totally see that. It's Rudy Gobert. It's what he does. I think Karl Anthony Towns. I think him being tasked with guarding a perimeter player on a nightly basis has the chance to be just a disaster.
Yeah.
Like him having to guard a 4 on teams that like Tobias Harris is our 4, or like if you look down the line, like there aren't a lot of teams that are playing bigs like that. Maybe he has the chance, obviously, to do some damage on the other end with that mismatch. But we've seen this. We've watched this happen.
Yeah.
We've watched this play out. Yeah, I don't like it. I don't like that. I was like from the beginning, I've been kind of like off on Minnesota. It says Minnesota, so I don't like it anyway. But like, who knows? Obviously, it's Rudy Gobert. Like, can't knock that at all. I think he obviously has a chance to do it. I just want to see. I feel like the NBA wants a little bit something different. They gave it to Marcus Smart last year, so they're giving it to anybody.
Yeah, true. And Gobert has won it 3 times already, so not exactly a surprise pick. He's the guy that consensus favorite, so not a crazy pull for me. I do think going small ball is how you beat that team, and I'm excited to kind of see how that tactical matchup goes throughout the season. But yeah, it'll be fun to watch. Anthony Edwards is also the complete X factor for how good they can be, because I do think he could be like that kind of guy. Like he's good. He will eventually, if it's not this year, be the number one, like consensus number one. This is his team, and if he takes that leap this year, I think they have a chance.
He's very good. I like him a lot.
Yeah, I do as well. Move on to talk about another young stud, and who is your pick for Rookie of the Year this season?
Yeah, I think mine's going to be Paolo. He's man, watching what he's been able to do and what he does with the basketball, passing, shooting, handle at 6'10", what he does on a nightly basis. I really like that. I think the Magic are going to be pretty good. Like they're not going to be great, but they're going to be frisky and fun. And he's going to be kind of the headsteam to that. Like he's going to be the guy that's running their offense. He's got Wagner with next to him. I think Franz is a really good player as well. They're going to be a really just interesting team, big and like lengthy and weird and quirky. And that's fun. Like they almost like replicate the Raptors in that way. But I think Paolo, just the numbers he's going to put up, the ball's going to be in his hand all the time. If the Magic are any good or he's helping them become a little bit better, Jabari Smith, to me, just, he's not going to get the touches. He's not going to be creating for that offense. He's kind of like just not the flashy style that I think will bring a Rookie of the Year title his way. And then obviously Chet going down hurts his case a lot. I think like Jaden Ivey, like, again, I don't know if his numbers are going to look right. Keegan Murray, sneaky, could be in that category there, but I think it's going to be Paolo.
Yeah, all great points you brought up. I like Paolo a lot. I think the match can be very fun. Franz Wagner is becoming like one of my favorite players across the entire NBA. He's a blast to watch. Looks like he got even better this offseason and preseason. He looked very good. Wendell Carter is fun there too. They got a bunch of just fun players that are cool. So that Magic team is going to be one to watch moving forward. But as far as my pick for Rookie of the Year, I'm going a little outside the box, and I got Benedict Mathurin here. The Arizona guy, I love him. I think he's in a good spot with the Pacers. I think him and Halliburton are going to form a pretty cool long-term backcourt partner. He's got like an NBA-ready game. He's got great body control. He can score. He can score in isolation, off movement. I think they're going to do a lot of fun things, just him and Halliburton figuring out ways to play off each other. And I think that's going to be a fun backcourt to watch this year moving forward. And I think he'll have both the opportunity and the talent to win this.
Good point. I think it's a great pick. He was kind of like, he was on my list as well. I think he's a guy that's going to like turn some heads, because I don't know if a lot of people are really hip to him yet, that maybe aren't like diehard fans of basketball, that aren't really watching on a nightly basis. I don't know if the NBA casual fan is hip to Benedict Mathurin yet, but they will be soon. They definitely will be soon. Athletically, what he does with the rock and how he can score, like, he's going to be one of their better guys on that team. And I love Tyrese Halliburton, and I know he's going to help free up Mathurin a lot. So good backcourt, could be fun. Interesting to see what Indiana is going to do this year, because like, what is their direction right now? Who knows? But I guess we'll find out soon.
Yeah, definitely. And he's got the confidence as well. I've been a fan of him as at Arizona too. Calling himself the best player in the nation last year. I loved it. And he's very good. So I'm excited to see how it translates. I think he's a guy who's more NBA skill based than he was in college. I think he is going to open it up. So I'm excited to see it. So to wrap things up here, last kind of thing we kind of hinted at earlier, but so Sixers roster currently sits at 14 guys. They got a little over $5 million in cap space under the hard cap limit. So how do you see this playing out? Do you think that they're going to sit back, wait for guys to shake out, wait for guys to shake free? Is there any position you think they're targeting, or what are your kind of thoughts on how the roster rounds out?
Yeah, so we didn't really get to talk about Isaiah Joe and Charles Bassey. Like, I know we talked about them last week. We didn't get to talk about them getting cut. Shame for them. I liked both of them a lot. I know we both did. I know a lot of Sixers fans did. Just want to point out, like, really quick, like, it's okay. It's okay to see those guys go. They're both good players. They're both good young players. They both have some promise in their career. I think they're going to both go have solid careers. Neither of them are breaking this roster and turning into contributing players when it comes to playoff time. I think that's just what it comes down to. Save some money, let them go play in Oklahoma City and wherever Bassey ends up, and be able to play. Like, I think that's all fine. To be able to create some cap space, create a roster spot, I think it's pretty clear that their plan is to add at least another player at some point this season. I think it might be backup point guard. Might be a vet backup point guard. I know this is such a miserable like Groundhog Day experience for this team. I can't do it anymore. They got to find a guy that's like at least decent to handle the rock in that second court. Like, it's going to be either a backup point guard or just another wing, another vet wing. I think it'll be a guy that's had championship experience, or at least playoff experience at the very least, and a guy that can come in and just do a job. But when you talk about Melton being a guy that's going to take up maybe too much of the ball handling responsibility in the second unit, I think there's a solution to that would be to add another ball dominant guard for the second unit. I don't know who that is, though, to be honest. I have no idea.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that is the biggest point of need. When you look at this Sixers roster, James Harden is the only natural playmaker on it. Like, I think the best case scenario when looking at rotations is to stagger Harden and Maxey's minutes so that one of them's on the court at all time. But Maxey's still not like a natural playmaker. Shake Milton can kind of do it, but he's also a guy who's better creating his own shot. He's a ball handler, but not a natural playmaker. And Melton, I don't think that we're going to like the results if we throw him in that role. So I think that is the biggest point of need. Kemba Walker shook free today. I don't know if that's something that will not a Kemba guy.
Nah, man, I like Kemba. I like Kemba Walker. I don't like Kemba Walker as a basketball player. Not at 30 whatever. He's just defensively not even a human. He's just like a traffic cone. And like, is he a playmaker?
Not really either.
Not really. So I like Kemba. Like, don't get me wrong. I like Kemba. and I hope he gets a chance somewhere. I hope it's not here, to be honest.
Yeah, cardiac Kemba.
Yeah.
I think Ben McLemore is a name to watch too. He's
Yeah.
still a free agent. He's a guy who played on that Houston
Rockets.
team. Yeah, has the Daryl Morey connection, has the James Harden connection. I think he's just a fine wing depth guy, but he's not really the ball handler that we're talking about. Carmelo is still floating out there, but he kind of left on bad terms in Houston, so I don't expect that to be the case. Although I do think he's a guy that deserves an NBA shot, and I was impressed with last year, him kind of transitioning into his role as just kind of a 3-point shooter, a guy that had his best defensive year last year. So he should land somewhere. I don't think it should be in Philly. And to your point about Isaiah Joe, happy to see him land at Oklahoma City. I think it's a way better spot for him. He's going to be able to play through his mistakes and not have as short of a leash on him. And I think they're going to be happy with having him in the building. So happy to see that there. I don't know. I also wouldn't be surprised if they carry 14 for a little bit into the regular season and let it see like what we need, because this also allows them to take in a little more contract than they send out if they do make a trade, if there is kind of a Furkan and whatever else change deal that manifests itself. So I don't know. I wouldn't be shocked if there just is no player added before the season starts.
Yeah, I think that's how they're going to play it. Like Doc said that what was the exact quote was like, we're pretty sure there's players that will shake free, or we're pretty confident that there's players that will shake free that will, we'll pick up. So like it's guys that are either going to like get bought out, or guys that are just going to be shed for like nothing or traded for a second round pick. Like it's going to be one of those things where it just gives you options. It gives you the ability to add a guy. There's going to be teams that are going to be like doing egregious tanking. Whether that's Utah or Indiana or like one of these teams that's like, we need Victor, so we're going to just tank like as hard as we possibly can. Houston, whatever it is, like whoever it may be. One of those teams is going to tank with a player that's, not useful to them at the time, too good to help them lose, not good enough to win them enough games to be competitive. There's going to be some of those guys that shake loose. Now they have the chance to go get those guys, and I think that's a good thing for a team that's in their position.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll wrap it up here. What's your official prediction for tomorrow?
In Boston, game 1. I can't go against the Sixers. So Sixers win 114-104. Sixers win in Boston on opening night. I can't wait, man. I am chomping at the bit.
Yeah, me too. 10-point victory. I like that. I'm gonna say a little bit lower scoring. I'm gonna go like 106-99 is my prediction. Sixers win.
Lovely.
Let's go. But let's go with it. We got Sixers basketball back tomorrow. We appreciate all you guys for tuning in. Make sure to follow us on all the socials. You can check with us there. Drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already. And we will get back with you next time with some actual basketball to talk about.